This is a conversation with Missy Baize, an American black belt out of War Horse BJJ in Wenona, Illinois, USA. She's a medical technician at Morris County Hospital, as well as studying to become a paramedical tattoo artist. I hope you enjoy our chat. Tell me what it was like to get your black belt and a little bit about your journey to hit that point.
Sure. So I was very surprised. My husband has been my coach the whole time. And I had kind of taken over classes because he had an injury. He'd been off the mats for a while. And we had our friend Jeremy Laughlin coming up to do a seminar.
I really like Jeremy. I've trained with him a few times. He's
He's
a
a
fun
beast.
big guy.
Yes, yes. I get to do all my nasty tricks to him, like the Hickson dribble. I tried to armbar him once. There was like literally 4 people trying to armbar him with me. It was beautiful. But so he came up and I thought I was getting a stripe on my brown belt because I was a 3-stripe brown belt. Yeah. So that's what I thought I was getting. I was so stoked about that. I was like, yeah, I'm almost to the end. Another year. And they awarded me my black belt. And very surprised, but some would say, I got my haters out there, and they would say it's a little fast, but I am on the mats full time, right? Like Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. I'm at every class. A little different than the person that makes it once a week, right? So you would almost expect the person that puts the time in to advance a little faster. So it was very surprising, but it's been awesome. I was so excited. Yeah.
Do you feel like there's an issue with the kind of way people treat? Oh, this person get a black belt, they didn't deserve it. Like you said, haters. Like, is that a thing that you feel like you run into regularly?
No, I was just surprised at who they were. It's always the person that you think supports you and has your back that when you find out, oh, they won't even give this a thumbs up on Facebook. Like they're that petty of a hater, it's just surprising, but I don't concern myself with it a lot. I just like, okay, now I know who you are. Got it. I'm still doing me and still have fans like Jeremy out there. So if they have an issue, they can take it up with him.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think, one of the interesting things is a lot of times people are like, well, I don't know if that person deserves it. And they get upset with the person rather than the one who gave them the belt and said, hey, this
Right.
is somebody that I see as willing to represent me.
Yeah. And it was important to John, my husband, that he did not give me my belt because he thought we would get a lot more of that. So Jeremy agreed to support me in that way.
Did you feel any different when you got the belt? Like your first round, your first class, was it different for you, or was it just another day on the mat for you?
No, they actually surprised me really well. Like they had my family come in. Prior to black, every other belt I had bought myself, right? I ordered it because I knew belt promotions were coming up. I was getting Corey's and Kyle's and my belts, So they did a really good job surprising me. So I would say my first roll, I was still on a cloud. Like I was still in shock. That whole day was amazing. I literally went to Casey's with my black belt on to get more beer on the way home. Like I was that obnoxious. I was that excited, And I remember talking with Jeremy, and he was saying that some people are like real blasé about it, right? Like, oh, it's just a stripe, it's just a belt. What's it matter? It's all about the journey, And I was kind of like, should I like take it down a notch? You know what I mean? Because I'm over here like, I got my black belt, Should I take it down a notch? And he says, is that you? And I was like, no, I'm pretty excited, and I really want to shout it. And he's like, then shout it. That's their prerogative if it's not important to them. So, no, it was not just another day at all.
I think that's great advice. Like, show up with who you are. Like, be the person you are. And if that's like screaming from the mountaintops, like, I finally did this thing that's important to me, that I'm passionate about. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. He gives great advice. And I think I've always done that, like throughout my journey, going to Globetrotter camps. If a black belt says something wise, man, I write that down. I'll be like, I remember when Jay Bell said, you don't have to like everyone. And I just like, I held them up here, if they gave good advice, I was just like, my wise friend that maybe is younger than me, but they have their black belt. So it just like gave it a little more substance. And I remember after a competition, we were at lunch, and Kyle was upset that he didn't get his match. And I said, well, that's why you don't leave it to the refs. And he's like, that's why you don't leave it to the refs. You know what I mean? He had that moment where like, oh, this black belt said, finish the match, get the tap, don't leave it to the ref decision, And I just remember being like, oh, that's weird. I'm one of those people now.
Do you feel like you're qualified to be one of those people, or do you just feel like it kind of happened?
No, I do. I think that we hold ourselves against the person that walked in the gym, right? We don't all have to be competitors. We don't all have to, you don't have to come 5 days a week. I'm just psycho. But the distance from white belt Missy, who didn't do anything, to black belt Missy, that journey is absolutely qualifies me. You know what I mean? I think from who I was to who I am now, I think that qualifies me.
What was the most unexpected lesson that you learned on the mat that you maybe took into daily life?
Well, I would say, I don't know how to put it into words, but I know that I get frustrated when I'm struggling with something way less. I remember, like a butterfly sweep, and I was just struggling so hard with it, and near tears. This is white belt Missy, right? So she's emotional and on the mats and frustrates easily and doesn't believe in herself. Just like, I suck, I can't do this, all these things. And obviously now I can do a butterfly sweep. So I just learning that helps me throughout life. Like I don't get as frustrated as easily, and I kind of look at things like, okay, what do I need to know? How do I learn this? What am I missing? That kind of thing. Not perfect at it, but better.
Was it difficult for you to step onto the mat as somebody who gets frustrated with themselves so easily, especially considering how difficult and just dense with moves and information that jiu-jitsu is of a sport?
It was difficult because being a female and not being very strong, I really struggled with that because all these guys were bigger and stronger than me, and some of them very athletic, and I had never been athletic. So that part was hard. I just knew it was important to do it. So I went into this to support my husband. He started War Horse as a blue belt. So my goal was, I want to show up twice a week and prove that you can learn jiu-jitsu. So he has a curriculum that he based off of different schoolings and things. And he had said that by having a curriculum, he watched, is it a librarian? He watched a librarian like learn jiu-jitsu and become a purple belt. And so he truly believed in the curriculum. And I believe in him. So I was like, I'll go twice a week. He even had a treadmill in there because I thought that I liked running more than jiu-jitsu. And my poor friends, like, they moved this treadmill all over because I never used it. We eventually scrapped it. So I did my 2 classes, and then I was like, okay, let me look at my schedule. And sometimes I would do 2 a day. So I was immediately addicted. And I think because I couldn't figure it out, I didn't realize how many reps I was doing trying to get that butterfly sweep.
What kind of lessons do you feel like you could impart to other non-athletic women that are, maybe about to step in the sport, new on the sport? Like, what can you tell them about,
Well,
what you learn?
I would tell them, not to compare themselves to others. It's so easy to do, and it is not helpful at all. I I look through my Facebook memories a lot. Like I like looking at old pictures. I like kind of seeing my own journey. And if I start looking up, AJ Klingerman in Indiana, I'm going to start feeling bad because maybe I'm not doing as much as I perceive she's doing. I don't even know, Facebook and social media is very limited in what you know about somebody, but just,
Right.
just don't compare yourself to others, especially, if you're not an athletic and you're watching competitors doing jujitsu. It's going to look different. So that, and then just like be ready for the confidence that comes, because that kind of took me by surprise. I know I was at work the other day and somebody was talking about, could you imagine doing that speech in front of 5 people? And I was like, waiting for the rest of the story. I'm like, well, what happens? And they're like, no, like talk. And they're like, forget it. I forget what you do.
And that's actually really interesting. Like, what piece of advice could you give somebody to be ready for the confidence, or like, what can you tell people to look out for that confidence to show up? Like, I think that's super interesting.
I suppose it's very individual, because you don't want somebody that already has this high ego if they walk in and be like, be ready, you're going to be really confident soon. It's more the people that are a little more like me when they started, like, I don't know if I can do this, but just welcome it, don't shy away from it. Kind of like I'm a black belt, I finally got it, be proud of yourself, and I'll be there, like, I'll at least give you the Facebook thumbs up.
Yeah. Do you think there's anything that's athletically inclined, like that makes you athletically inclined as a result of this journey? Do you feel that athleticism is necessary for this journey, or do you kind of feel like uh, however you show up, as long as you keep showing up, you can kind of get there? Like, what's your
Yes,
view on this?
I absolutely believe that. I think we can all be a little better. We can all be a little stronger, uh, or flexible. Some people are super strong and can't get down on the mats. I think even just learning how your body works is huge. I'm big into body mechanics, and kind of like, this is why this works. Not just, I'm just cranking on your arm. Like, I understand where the pressure is coming from, or the angle. Learning how your body works is another big thing. I remember I had a white belt do a private lesson with me, and I was like, you know what we're going to work on? Learning how to move your body, right? So we did a lot of solo drills and things like that, because he just didn't have that, couldn't even bend all the way down to the mats, so we did a lot of that. But I would say that's false, that you have to be athletic to do jujitsu. I think you have to be able to move your body, and some people do have limitations that they can't. But you don't have to be athletic. You don't even have to be smart. Um, I have a special needs adult who did his first competition, and I'm not gonna lie, our other black belt cried a little when he got his takedown. It was like um, it wasn't so much an exposition, like he was just put into the bracket, but we had a meeting with, it was a Fuji, and they did a really good job, like making sure he was safe and able to work. And I would talk to the coach, and they were like, what do you want from this match? I'm like, I just want him to be able to do jujitsu. Like, what good is it going to do your guy to choke my mentally handicapped kid in 5 minutes or 5 seconds? What is he getting out of that? So they just let him work, right? And when he got his takedown, Corey's over there like, it was really cool.
I actually would like to chat about that for a minute. What's it like teaching and coaching somebody with that kind of special needs or disability? And you don't have to go into the details of what their disability is. I'm just curious, like, what you do
Yeah.
differently, what you've learned, how you approach it.
So, um, he just kind of does what he can, and we'll partner up. And usually the first move of the day is, kind of a little more basic, like getting into close guard and doing these things. So I really just, uh, he gets what he can. Our guys are really good with him too. Like they're very patient, and we usually will like triple up so he can watch it, he can practice it, and there's absolutely times where it's way too difficult. Like there's way too many steps. So let's just get to the setup, or let's just get here. He does have wrestling experience. He wrestled in high school. So some of my guys have learned terms that will help him, like do a sit out. He knows how to do that. So some of those things, or pin him, where I'm like, saying something kind of over his head. It does help me realize like how to break things down. One funny thing was Professor John was here, and we were trying to get him to straighten out. And John says, turn it into a pencil. And I saw Braden go, what? Like, we understand that means like be in a straight line. And he's over here trying to figure out, how do I literally turn it into a pencil? Like, I'm a human being. I can't be a pencil.
That's interesting. Yeah, I feel like there's always like very interesting lessons we get from people who think differently and have different cognitive abilities or different physical abilities. And I don't think as teachers we always take that stuff into account until it's kind of like thrown at us.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So I want to talk a little bit also about your life outside the gym. You're a medical technician. So what does that entail? Like, where do you work? What kind of stuff do you focus on?
Yeah, so I'm at Morris Hospital Laboratory. I work second shift. I have great supervisors who help schedule me so that I can still do this. I'm off every Wednesday and Saturday afternoon, so I can always do Saturday morning class. I've been doing this since 1999. I went to school for my associates, did the whole clinicals, got a job. I've worked at a lot of different hospitals. I finally found one that I really like, and it's unfortunate that it's almost an hour away. But I just put my Audible on and, hit the road. It does suck in bad weather, but so when you go to a doctor and you get your labs drawn, or you're at the hospital, I'm the one who does all the analysis. So chemistries, hematology, urinalysis, micro. If you ever unfortunately needed a unit of blood, I would have made sure that blood was safe for you.
Do you work with patients, or is it strictly the doctors take this, or the nurses take this, they give you the stuff and
yeah, I don't have patient contact. I have everywhere else, but at Morris it's big enough that we have a phlebotomy team that I don't ever have to step in and do it. So that was part of my motivation becoming a med tech was I was in the nursing program. I was accepted in, and my grandma was a nurse. Both my aunts are nurses. So I just, that's just what I do, right? And I chickened out. I was just like, I'm not sure if this is right for me. I got married, did everything in all the wrong orders, got married, and then I was just kind of working for an eye doctor. Great guy, great job, but just not a lot of advancement. So I was going back to school. I think I was in a summer chemistry course because I knew I needed probably some prereqs if I was going to go into something else. I can't remember my thought process way back then, but there was a recruiter for this med tech program, and she came in and was explaining it and saying how much science it is and the biology of it. And I was just like, I think this is it. I think this is what I want to do. So that's how I got into it, I guess.
Do you miss working with patients?
No. No. I do like getting the story, right? Like finding out how they got here. I think emergency medicine is my biggest joy, right? I feel like that's where I help people the most. Most of the outpatients, like you go to your doctor and you get your lab work done, maybe your cholesterol's high. That's not very exciting after 25 years of seeing high cholesterols. So it's definitely the emergency medicine that I think keeps me passionate about being a lab tech.
Well, can you explain a little bit about what emergency medicine, like how you participate in the emergency medicine cycle as
Yeah,
somebody in the
so
background?
somebody comes to the ER, they start an IV and they take some blood and we run all the tests. And I think it's interesting that we can really learn a lot in a short amount of time about what's going on with your health. Maybe you have back pain and it turns out you have a kidney stone. You had no idea. We can run these respiratory panels. I can tell you if you have the common cold or if you actually have parainfluenza virus in about an hour. So I think that's really cool. And then that's just where we find the really interesting cases. Like, okay, grandma has not been feeling well. She's been a little tired. Turns out she's super anemic, and we have a really good rapport with our ER doctors. Even though I don't work aside of them, I probably call them, 10, 20 times a day with criticals, so they really do take our advice too. I had not too long ago where somebody had been in the hospital not too long prior and the results just weren't matching. And I called doctor and I'm like, I'm getting this redrawn. I don't even believe, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was mislabeled or just not treated well. So there's a whole pre-analytical phase that can go wrong. And I just kind of stopped it right there. I did the analysis, but I didn't report it out because I was like, I just don't believe this is her blood. I don't know. We're starting over. And he was like, okay.
Well, what happened? Like, was it her blood? Was it not her blood?
I don't think so. I don't know what happened. We did get it redrawn and the numbers matched much closer. So.
Okay. Is there any like particularly memorable story that you have, like working next to the ER or working in emergency medicine? Memorable can be positive or negative, by the
way. Yeah. So we've seen cases. The most memorable ones are when somebody comes in for some sort of accident, right? And then we find out that they have leukemia, right? If I run your CBC and you have a 50,000 white count and they're all lymphocytes, so we usually send those patients up to Lurie's hospital the same day. And I just think, wow, that poor mother, she thought, her kid was on a football accident and turns out, ugh, now you have this to deal with. But it's interesting. Those are the most memorable ones, the really scary ones. But at least you find out now rather than later, I guess.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you kind of learned or use on a day-to-day basis as your job as a lab technician that you brought back to the mat, like life lessons, technical lessons, anything like that?
I think some of the anatomy and physiology, definitely that training helps on jiu-jitsu. I'm big into injury prevention too, just because of watching my husband not be able to be on the mats. Like Jeremy says, you never know when your last day on the mat is going to be. So I think as we get older, we have to kind of respect that and just try to take care of our bodies a lot. So I feel like it goes more the other way, where jiu-jitsu enters lab work. And I say that because my communication skills, being able to talk to the phlebotomists and kind of lead them, definitely more of a leader than I was prior to doing jiu-jitsu.
That's that confidence thing sneaking back in.
Yeah.
Earlier.
Exactly.
Is there any specific lesson that you could take away? Like maybe the way you handle pressure, the way you handle, a quick change in circumstances. Has that affected you or impacted you positively on or off the mat?
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah. Doing jiu-jitsu means like you're put in a high pressure situation. You're not very happy with what's going on, and you immediately have to change
Yeah.
tactics. That kind of pressure, I would imagine, probably also exists in the hospital. Is that kind of thing something that's been useful? Has that happened to you where you're like, okay, I just need to calm down and breathe, and okay, now I'm actually okay?
Yeah. Some of that comes just with time too of being a tech. Uh, but for sure, I don't ruffle easily, and that's part of what my coworkers really like about me. I don't get super stressed out. I don't get snippy. I just take it one sample at a time, or if my analyzer's down, I'm troubleshooting it. And you just go with the flow, right? And you just go as fast as you can, as efficient as you can. But panicking has never helped in any situation, on or off the mat.
Do you feel like the people that you work with have a similar temperament to avoid panicking when something goes wrong? Or do you feel like being on the mats has taught you some of those lessons in, being confident that you will be able to work through issues?
Yeah, I think that's unique. I don't think my coworkers have that. Uh, they can get pretty panicked pretty quickly. Some of them are new. They only have like 4 years experience. So it just comes with like, I don't know what to do when my QC's out. It's like, okay, well, we start here, we go here. But I don't think that's universal at all.
Do you feel like you take on a similar teacher kind of mentor role with your coworkers as a result of this teaching on the mats?
I have a leadership role. I am the lead tech on my shift. So, not a supervisor, but I'm the person you come to when it hits the fan, right? Or you don't know what to do. So it's just nice to have, especially as a newer tech, when you're coming across these things that you don't know how to handle, you just come to Missy, right? You just come to me, and so I definitely think that helps. But I do have a leadership role, and I think, like I said, I've become a better leader. I started at Morris, and I was probably a blue belt, so I had already started doing jujitsu. It's funny. So my boss, we talked about your wife being a tattoo artist. So I obviously show up to my interview looking like this, right? And just very buttoned up and everything. And I show up my first day of work, and I have sleeves. And she literally told me that later on she thought, oh God, what did I do? Who did I hire? And then it's funny that she thinks martial arts and she thinks tattoos. So there was another guy who's a brown belt in Taekwondo. And so he's telling her this. It comes up in the interview. And then her next question is, do you have tattoos? He was like, no. Like, it's just funny that she associates those two together and just assumes everyone has tattoos. I mean, it's not a bad assumption.
It's not unreasonable. Most of us really do have a lot of tattoos, and I feel like a lot of people that I see on the mat who come with, clean arms or legs will sometimes show up with a tattoo a few months later after they've been training. And I think it helps people feel like a sense of community in a way, at least on the mat. I don't know. I can't prove it. I just feel like it's
Yeah,
one of those that, oh, you have a tattoo also? Let's talk about it.
exactly. Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you from what you said before is that, like, now you're a tech, lead tech. Do you feel like when you weren't a lead tech and you had to go to your lead tech when you were, more junior in your career, that they had a similar composure when you were like, oh, I got a question, or when other people had questions? Or do you feel like you are able to do your job a little bit more effectively as a result of some of this?
Well, I try to emulate the best role models that I had. Obviously, not everyone, was great at answering questions, or that being called away from their task to help you with yours, but I've definitely had good leaders, and I try to mimic that. And we have good supervisors at Morris. So it's just like having that good team just like when you find the right gym, you just kind of gel with the people. And so, yeah, I don't think that it's always been like that. We all have horror stories of being in our clinicals. Techs get really tired of teaching all the time. They don't get paid any extra to do this. And so, they tend to feel like they're babysitting sometimes, like teaching people and sometimes it's, every semester you get a new student and you got to start from scratch and explain how to make a slide. And so they can get a little tired and a little snippy, but there's some good ones out there.
Are there any misconceptions about med techs that you would like to take the opportunity to clear up?
Yes. We're nerdy introverts.
I mean, is that a misconception or?
It's pretty spot on. I can't remember the guy who does these Instagram reels, and I think he's an ER doctor. And so he was saying like, okay, I need you to take this down to the lab. And the other guy's like, what? Where is it? And they're like, oh, it's in the basement. No, there's no windows, and then he meets the lab tech and they're like afraid to speak to him, like, okay, and that we reject all the samples, we get that too. But they are pretty introverted. One time I was training, we had an intern who was going to trying to get into medical school, so just needed that little extra paper and little extra proof, that this is what he wants to do. And so my coworker was talking to him maybe an hour or so, just talking about stuff. He was very intrigued into what we were doing and why we do it. And I remember he walked out and she was like, oh, that was a lot of talking. I go, it was like an hour. She was just spent. She was like, I'm way too introverted for that. So that's definitely our Barbie scientist has glasses. And
I get that. I mean, I feel like as somebody who rather enjoys talking and spending a fair amount of time with people who don't enjoy talking, like my wife, sometimes I'm like, after a conversation, they'll be, that's enough. And then just go to another room to recover. So I know that feeling. So one of the other things I wanted to talk about was you're studying, or you're looking to study, you're actually in the middle of studying to be paramedical tattoo artist. So yes. Can you tell me a little bit about what that is first and then why you got into it?
Yes. So paramedical is more cosmetic. It can be brows, lips. It can be reconstruction. They do. I went to a training down in Florida, and they're even doing areolas on patients who have lost their breast. Right now, I'm doing stretch mark and scar revision, learning those techniques. So I had got into it because I had been into makeup. I had been in one of those multi-level marketing plans and was selling makeup. I definitely have some cringeworthy moments from that time, some messages I sent that I'm like, oh God, Missy. But I did learn a lot about social media, and it's not all bad. But so I liked the makeup part of it. And then my husband tried to get me into microblading, and I was just like, it never stuck because I didn't necessarily like how it looked.
What is microblading?
So that's when they actually scratch your skin and rub pigment in it. So it fades super fast, and I just don't think it looks very natural. Now there's some cooler techniques that I'm more interested in where it's called hyperrealism. So you'll have some individual strokes, but then it's kind of colored in. So if you know somebody that's very fair, they're probably drawing their eyeliner or eyebrows on. But they don't do each individual hair. They just kind of, color it in. So he had showed me this convention and asked my thoughts. And I was like, well, that might be interesting. And he had been out with his injury, and then we remodeled the shop. So I was kind of like, maybe he's bringing this to me because he wants like, a partner going back into this. Maybe he just needs a little confidence boost. And he was saying like, because he's there, I won't, get bogged down with stuff I don't need to know. We've been at seminars and he'll be like, well, this is basically just a scissor sweep, and just kind of break things down in a way that I can understand. So he was like, I can do that for you with tattooing. And so we went and then came back and started training. A lot of online stuff, but I've done the scratch pad. So that's just like a piece of rubber that you're practicing on. And then I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I said, will you come watch me? And I'm going to set up the scratch pad, make sure I'm doing it right. And so, oh, no, I had a new machine. So I bought this kit that has a skin reader. So, when you take a paint chip to the store and they can match it, it's basically that technology for skin. So I'll get a reading of your skin. So when I'm doing your scar, I can actually match your skin. And it came with the tattoo machine. And I was like, I just want you to see it, let me know if it's good or not. Cause, he has big opinions about tattoo machines and what to use. So I was like, let's go look at it. Let's play with it. And so I started and he was like, well, just color this thing in. And so that's what I did. I just kind of started coloring in on him. And then the next week I said, okay, I'm ready again. Like, help walk me through the setup process. What do I need? Where do I put this? All of those things. So, and then again, I just kind of colored him in. And he says that we're going to continue that. And I'm just going to be so comfortable by the time client comes in that it'll be like no big deal.
Do you feel that there's like some parallels here in the way that you approach learning something complicated, like all the prerequisites to become a med tech and learning about blood and all the other things you need to know, learning jujitsu, again, all the prerequisites, all the little things you need to know, and then taking on a completely new skill, like where you're starting from scratch, like tattooing?
For sure. So, he taught me jujitsu. So, I was pretty confident that he'd be able to help me, with tattooing. Through any marriage, you go through things that you're trying to communicate, like say put together an IKEA shelf, that's a relationship tester,
Literally,
so,
you're choosing one of the hardest things to do as a couple right there.
yeah. So I didn't have those memories of the IKEA bookshelf. I had all the memories of being on the mat and just knowing that I could do that difficult thing. Like I could make it to a black belt. Then I can learn how to tattoo too. The only thing is I really have a lot of, what do they say? Things in the iron in the, what is that saying?
Fire.
Yeah, that's
Like
I have a lot of irons in the
at the
fire.
same time.
Yeah.
Is that a positive thing? Is that a negative thing? How do you view that?
That's a Missy thing. I am not good at relaxing. If there's, an opening on my schedule, I'm filling it with something. I just am very busy. I don't do well with just idle time. I don't know. That's just a me thing. It's positive for me because if I don't have that, I can get a little stir crazy or up in my own head for sure. And that's not a good place to be.
I mean, I'm actually quite similar in that I like to be very busy. And as a result, I've also taken on way too many hobbies at times.
Yeah.
In fact, also a little bit how I got into what I'm doing right now is I had a little bit of extra time and an idea that I really wanted to get out. And here I am now interviewing people and talking to folks about, jujitsu in their lives. So I very much know that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
How much of the prep work that you feel that you do on a day-to-day basis for tattooing do you feel you take as a result of how you break down problems?
So I I get what you're saying. So kind of systematically, right? It's a procedure which we follow at work. We even call them SOPs. People who have never been in the military or healthcare don't know what that acronym is. It's a standard operating. Yeah.
Ex-military, yes.
Yeah. So it's very similar to that. It's just instead of, setting up the stain, I'm setting up a sterile area. So that will help a lot where, I think someone with a more artist brain is like, okay, so I want to color in, or I want to shade this. What do I need? And they're kind of thinking about it backwards, right? So they are thinking about the end result and going back and being like, okay, I'm going to need this. I'm going to need this. And they're going to forget their razor. And that's probably just their personality, right? They probably leave the house without their wallet or cell phone a lot too, because they're so artistic in their brain.
I mean, that sounds like you're talking about somebody with like a little bit of ADHD or something along those lines.
Every problem has its own positive, I feel like.
I think that's a great way of looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you would you kind of wish people would know? Is there any piece of advice that you kind of wish you could share with everyone?
About what? Advice?
Anything. About being a tattoo artist, about being a med tech, about life, about jiu-jitsu. Is there anything that you just kind of wish everyone knew?
I am going to come up with 50 things when I'm trying to sleep tonight. I guarantee you.
And you can always send it to me later and we can put it in the show notes if you don't come up with something you want right now. And I can just say, Missy wanted everyone to know this specific thing. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I can't think of anything good off the top of my head. Yeah, I don't know. The one I just thought of, I'm literally just stealing from my purple belt. So, our purple belt Marco is teaching a class here, and he is always reminding people that you are strong, right? You're stronger than you think, mentally, physically. He pushes people to their limits. He's the wrestling background, so he's got all those terrible wrestling warm-ups. And so he's always reminding people that they're strong, but that'll be his podcast in the future.
when he gets the black belt.
Yep.
Yeah, fair enough. One of the other questions I'd like to ask is, have you had any long breaks? I know you said your husband has been injured and had to take time off, but have you had any long breaks? What was that like? How did you get through that?
I have. I went to main camp, and then I came home and had a gallbladder attack. Like I had just gotten my blue belt and I was in the hospital like 3 days after we got back. And I just remember I had all this knowledge from camp and now here I am sitting in a hospital. And, kind of like what I was saying about when people can say something and it's so meaningful. Jay Bell's like, the mats are waiting for you. Like you'll get back out there. You have the knowledge, you did the camp. So unfortunately, I didn't get better quickly. Like it wasn't just a gallbladder thing. It turned into all sorts of GI and food intolerances. I got down to 106 pounds. I couldn't work. I was so weak. So I was definitely off the mats. I kept trying to be on the mats because I knew how good it was for me. And I think it was my boss that was just like, you can't afford to burn the calories. Like you can't. So, I was sidelined for a while. And, I remember coming back. That was hard. And I think, so this is my purple belt speech. So when I got my purple belt, they kind of, I think Jeremy was there for that one too. They talked about perseverance. They said that that's why I was awarded that one. And I was like, I don't deserve this. I haven't even been on the mats. I have just kind of came back. And, but they saw how hard I was working to be there. And they saw, that she doesn't really feel well. but she's still here. It's important to her. So, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Well, just being sick in general is tough. But when you can't, I think worse was COVID when they shut it all down, when we couldn't train. And, I was just, the world was so scary and work was so stressful and we had new policies every day and I didn't have this outlet and it sucked. Yeah. Illinois, they were really strict. I know some of my friends down south, they just kind of opened up the back door and if you were cool, you were cool, and we didn't have that. We're on Main Street, downtown, small town. So, the haters would have been calling the governor for sure. So
Yeah.
I think that was tougher.
Do you have any advice for somebody who's going through a long layoff for whatever reason?
Yeah. I would say just stay active in your community, in your group. We encourage people obviously if you're not infectious, right? If you're recovering from an injury or something like that, come sit on the mats, right? Like that brotherhood and sisterhood is so important. And just, connecting with your people. Just, I think when we don't feel well, we, tend to isolate and I don't like that. That's not very healthy.
One last question about, I should have asked this earlier. Being a woman on the mat, do you have any advice to people who are not yet on the mat and are looking to maybe, they're undecided, can I do this? Is there anything you want them to know about, one, being on the mat, or two, choosing a school?
Yeah. So, that's a really good point. I think if you find the right school that, you can be on the mat. It's not as scary as you think it is. Literally the hardest day is walking in that door. But once you make that decision, it all gets easier from there. I had a cop who messaged us, gosh, I think it was like 18 months from his first message to when he walked in that door. And he laughs about it now. He's like, what was I so afraid of? What did I think was going to happen? You guys were all going to beat me up. But definitely, I think as a female too, you have to be really careful about where you go and who you're training with. And just, if there's another woman in the group, that's usually a good sign that it's a safe training environment. If if your training partners are, asking you out for dates, you should be comfortable to go to your coach and just say this isn't why I'm here. I'm not looking for a date. I'm looking for training partners. And then just people who respect your body. And my guys are great. Like they know how to push me but not injure me. And that's one thing I'm afraid of. Like when people move away, and they're going to do jiu-jitsu, I'm always like, do your trial week and see how it feels. Are they treating you well? Are they respecting your body and your limitations just from being a female? And also, I do a women's camp in Indianapolis, and there can be some catty women out there too, right? So, are the women being welcoming? There's a lot of Instagram reels where a woman's face when another woman shows up, we're so excited to have another training partner. But that's not always true. We can be a little catty and a little cliquey. So if you get that vibe too, I'd beware.
Great. Is there anything you'd like to promote? Anything you want to tell everyone about?
Yeah. So November 9th, I'm doing a Catalina submission mixer, grappling for gifts. Really excited about that. It's going to help people put presents under the tree for their kids. This Sunday, I'm going to pick up Chris Heider. We're having a combat-based seminar. I'm super excited about that. Jesse Walker is coming up from Kentucky. So it's just really cool to have such big names in a little town. I get Jeremy up here and I need to get Jay Bell back because I think he's got a half-finished tattoo. Or he wants another octopus, one of the two. But, yeah, so just War Horse Jiu-Jitsu, we're just, out here doing the seminars and bringing people together.
Great. I will make sure I get the War Horse Jiu-Jitsu in the show notes and from Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome.
Thanks very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed listening to our conversation. A few days after recording, Missy finally came up with a piece of advice that she wanted everyone to know. If you surround yourself with the right people and just never give up, shit will work out eventually. So shout out to all the great people surrounding Missy and helping her make sure her shit works out. As always, thanks for your time and attention. If you have any questions about being a med tech, or you find yourself in or around Wenona, Illinois in the United States, drop into War Horse and find Missy.